like I said, I think you were being salty over the fact that other clubs were getting better and your team wasn't. If we're going to talk about other fans who are salty that their team is not getting better, but other teams are, we're going to talk about San Diego. Okay. Because San Diego had to terminate Milan Iloski's loan to send him back to Nordjylland, or I think that's how you pronounce that. And what felt like literally 34 minutes later, he signed with Philadelphia Union on a full transfer, not a loan, which is insane because he asked to leave to go back to Europe just to come here as soon as he was brought back to what is that in Denmark, maybe? Yeah, maybe. And he's already
Yeah.
scored a goal. He's already scored a goal for Philly, right? Um, they've San Diego's got to be kicking themselves for not getting this done or for undervaluing him and giving him a low ball offer, whatever it may be. They a double kick in the pants because it ended up to the team that literally never spends money on anybody, and he's already scored a goal for them. Do you think San Diego should have pushed harder to bring him on permanently and tried to make him a long-term part of their project?
It's hard to say. I guess it depends on how much money they're like Nordstrom was looking for. Although I got to imagine, like you said, if Philly ended up getting him, it probably was not for a lot of money. But the dude was absolutely like I know he wasn't a starter, but he was electric for your team. Like 10 goals in less than 500 minutes. There's nobody in the league that even is going to touch nearly as close to goals per 90 than he will.
Yep.
So I don't see why you like if they needed you to fork over a little bit more money because he's performing well, like I just think you got to do it. Like just spend the money and keep him full time, especially if he's proving he can perform well in the system. And now you let him go to a team that is a rival for you in the supporters shield, who's like you said already contributing by scoring goals. So it somewhat depends on what the details are. If Nordstrom was asking for something ridiculous, then think I think they probably made the right decision. However, if Philadelphia got him, I would think it was probably not a ridiculous asking price.
I don't think the issue was Nordjylland's asking price. They only got him for a mil. Philly spent a mil on him, give or take. I
Hmm.
think the issue was Iloski's salary demand. Like they were trying to extend him to if I remember correctly, and I could be wrong here, but if I remember correctly, it was they were trying to extend him long term, make the loan permanent. He said, "No thanks. I'd rather go back to Europe for whatever you're giving me." And then he went back to Europe after they terminated his loan because he wanted to go back right away to make a name for himself. And then 2 minutes later, he's in Philly because they were like, "Oh yeah, by the way, you're not part of our plans. Go back home." And I think the issue was San Diego lowballed him. Now, could be wrong on that. Somebody from San Diego could correct us, but that's what I remember the story being.
I mean, if you can find a way to get it into your cap structure to keep him around, unless again, it's kind of the same situation here. Unless he was asking for something ridiculous like borderline DP money,
Which I
I
think he
think you find
was.
a way to keep him.
Which I think he was.
Okay.
And I'm just looking
Then
here.
maybe I don't necessarily disagree because as great as he was doing then, he just wasn't really a starter in their lineup. Like he was a bench guy who was doing really well in his bench appearances, but I don't know if you're gonna pay for near DP money to have someone on your bench as good as he
Mhm.
was doing.
I'm just looking it up here to see what his um, salary was because it's not on. He they released the club profile before they signed him. Iloski was making $156,000 this year, which is
It's
crazy.
not a surprise he wanted a new contract.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and like I said, he probably was pushing for, and I'd be really interested to see what he ends up on in Philly when they release it again. But here's the other part of it too, because right, we talk about the San Diego impact. I think that they should have tried to keep him on regardless, right? You mentioned his goals per 90. He was surrounded by good players, right? Dreyer and Lozano who were feeding him all day long. He was clearly finishing well. Now it's just Dreyer who needs to deal with it, right? Philly, on the other hand, have a ridiculously deep and scary attack. Ty Baribo, Milan Iloski, Mikael Ura, and Bruno Damiani. This has got to be the deepest attack they've ever had, ever, right? Do you think all four of them are going to make it 2026?
No, I wouldn't say so. That's too many guys who are performing at too high of a level to keep them all around. As much as it can work in the short term for Philly because they play. I mean, actually, no, that might have been the Jim Curtin method, but I know they used to play with two strikers. I don't know if they still do, but if they do, then I think you can make it work in the short term. But you're probably having too much. First of all, I think you're having too much salary for guys that are probably not going to end up being too much of a factor if they're coming off the bench. Or you get guys that aren't happy because they're not getting the game time that they were expecting when they came in. But good problem for Philly to have in the short term, that's for sure. And then I'm sure there's going to be guys that are on their way out. I wouldn't be surprised if like Ure moves on after this season and it's Barbo and Damiani next year if they're running two strikers.
Well, they do put with two strikers, so good job, good guess. I agree with you. I don't think we're going to see that many pure number nines in this team next year. Ure's contract's up at the end of the year, and he's on a DP spot, and he's not first name on the team sheet. I think he's probably gone. Damiani's here till 2028. Baribo has a contract option at the end of the year, and this is the one that interests me because there were already rumors that several MLS clubs, including New York Red Bull, because we always have to get a Red Bull reference in there, have inquired about him end of the year. So I'm really curious to see if Philly does like a quasi sign and trade type of thing where they say, "Hey, we'll let you go to Red Bull. We're going to activate this thing and we're going to make them pay us, you know, 4 Garber bucks and a bag of balls to get you." But I would be interested to see if he's also not back this year. So my guess is it's going to be Iloski and Damiani with insert youth player here, Chris Donovan or whoever, to be the next guy up, which will be interesting because Baribo has been very, very good. Ure gets the job done. Damiani's been all right, and Iloski's, I think he's the unknown, right? He did really well in San Diego. He's got he got a goal against Red Bull, but so does everybody else in the league. So yippee for him. Um, we'll have to see where it goes, but the off season is going to be super interesting for Philly this year, I think, because you've got a lot of big decisions to make. I was just looking at, like I said, I was just looking at club profiles, and you've got obviously Gazdag gone, not on the contract anymore. Ura, Makanya, their center back, their 22 center back. Ty Baribo's got his option up. They've got the Jacob Glesnes. Oh no, how brutal would that be if they didn't take him back? Bum. And then yeah, again, Chris Donovan is at the end of his contract. Now they're option years, but do they exercise that or do they try and find somebody else coming up, right? Is that Kayvon Sullivan's next spot? I don't know, right? They've got a whole bunch of contract decisions to make, and it will be very interesting to see how they go about it.